Question. What is the worst food that you have ever eaten in your entire life? Perhaps it was the ever-classic $2 gas station hot dog that you resented while being stuck in traffic. Or perhaps it's any Indian street food that you had during your spiritual quest for enlightenment. Or, if you're from good old Scotland like me, it could be literally any vegetable. Whatever it was, it's a fact that humanity, since the dawn of time, has had a very complicated relationship with food. We built entire civilizations around the concept of what we can and can't shove down our gullets. It's the most basic necessity that gives us energy, joy, and the occasional streak of diarrhea. But every once in a while, nature likes to get a little bit quirky and spits out broken people. People that don't eat because they need to, but because they can. I'm sure you've seen or heard about them. You know, the people that enjoy eating very nutritious things like tires, drywall, and construction bricks. And yes, there are people out there who feel compelled to eat those things. Now, what if that little evolutionary hiccup was cranked all the way to the max? What if one day a man was born who looked at the food pyramid and ate the thing, as well as many other things? And he also decided to turn this weird little habit of his into a publicity stunt. Michel Lotito, the man who ate a plane. Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm. Hey buddy, heard you've got yourself a pretty bad habit there. Gosh, I've been there. It just hangs off of you, doesn't it? Never going away even if you really want it to. If it wasn't for my current partner, I don't know where I'd be. Yeah, you've met him before, right? He was at my Great Gatsby-themed transition party. Yeah, you have met him. His name is Fume. That's right, my ludicrously loving LARPers, my babe Fume is back, and they're here to help you out. Who are Fume? Why, don't you fret, for such an utterly comical lack of knowledge can be easily rectified. Allow me to enlighten you. Fume is the premier in flavoured air devices that vows to help you with that one bad habit that's been haunting you. It helps you to return to your best self without any dodgy chemicals or blinking electronics. This is no spaceship, it's Fume, silly. You see, Fume is refreshingly simple. A rock-hard and firm wooden chassis with a plumed, smoochable head that's classy. Fume's sturdy form is worth admiring on craftsmanship alone. But let me say, size isn't everything. Fume causes a mighty motion in my tight and shallow ocean with an easily transportable frame. Indeed, despite the deceptive simplicity, Fume has a wide catalogue of fruity and fancy flavours to fall in love with. From grapefruit to maple pepper, there is definitely a flavour for you. Let me tell you of how I finally overcame my morally reprehensible, yet tastefully undisclosed, dark urges. Now, I thought I was fairly orange vanilla. But I was experimenting the other day to see which one would make me peach blush. And after sampling some crisp mint, I eventually found the one who really stole my cinnamon heart. Let me just say, once you go black licorice, you never go back. Trust me, I've tried, it's just too good. Delectable. So grab that old vape and just do it in already. It knows too much. If you want to join me and over 700,000 other people on your own journey to better habits, you need to only scan the QR code on the screen or go to tryfume.com and use code Dankula to get a free topper with your journey pack. I appreciate the topper because I tend to use my teeth far too much and it helps me calm down. Again, scan the QR code on the screen or go to tryfume.com and use code Dankula for a free topper with your journey pack. Michel Lotito was born on June the 16th, 1950 in Grenoble, France, which is a little bit ironic considering it's the country that is known for its cuisines and fine dining. Now, I will always be first in line to shit all over the French, don't get me wrong, but I can admit that they do know their way around the kitchen. And, to add more to the irony, Grenoble was a grey industrial shithole, which somehow ended up sitting right next to the most beautiful mountains in France, the French Alps. Michel was born to Italian immigrants, and for a very nice change of pace to my videos, his parents were actually very caring and loving towards Michel and his 5 siblings. But they were perpetually broke, and they were probably too tired to notice that little Michel was a lot more fond of the fork rather than the pasta that he got for dinner. It all started when Michel was around 5 years old. While the other children around his age were all chewing on candy, Michel was busy chewing on dirt, twigs, rocks, and God knows what else he could find on the ground. And his parents just kind of thought, well, kids eat bogies as well, this is probably just a phase. Now, I'm not faulting them for that because, as I know from experience, children will eat anything. Especially their own bogies. And sometimes they'll look you right in the fucking eye while they're doing it. But it was very clear that something was very wrong with Michel. As the years went by, Michel was still eating anything that wasn't nailed down. Probably because he already ate the nails. Eventually, with the neighbours gossiping and his parents horrified, it got bad enough that they actually dragged him to the doctor. That being a 50s doctor where the most advanced medicine that they had on hand was a packet of cigarettes and a prescription for throwing the wife into the loony bin because she voiced an opinion out loud. Better times. But anyway, after running some tests and x-rays, a diagnosis eventually came back. Pica. Now, if you're not familiar with pica, it's basically a psychological disorder that affects about 1% of the world's population. And it makes people crave things that aren't food. Dirt, soap, wood, toilet paper, the lining of couches, or just whatever the fuck your brain has decided is edible that day. If you can name it, someone with pica most likely tried to eat it. It's mostly common in toddlers and pregnant women, because it's part of the reason why pregnant women get all of those really strange cravings. For example, when my mother was pregnant with me, she used to eat tons and tons of mashed potato with Cocoa Pops mixed into it. And while the causes for pica are complex and not fully understood, some studies suggest that it's linked to iron deficiency anemia. Michel's parents tried everything. Therapy, discipline, they probably threw a little prayer in there for good measure, but nothing worked. And also, how the fuck do you even parent that? Michel, you're being naughty. Go to your room. Oh dear, the boy has eaten his room. What are you supposed to do? Michel's cravings were unstoppable. He didn't just want to eat random shit. He needed to. It was a full-time compulsion. Now, most people with pica end up hospitalised, poisoned, or just flat out dead because the things that they eat usually cause a lot of internal damage to their stomachs and intestines. This very famous picture of what was pulled out of the stomach of a man who had pica should help you understand why it was so dangerous. And yes, that is just a pile of nails and safety pins. But when it came to Michel, nothing. He just kept going like a walking blast furnace. No vomiting, no bleeding, absolutely no internal injuries to speak of. Nothing. But Dankula, you dashing rogue with a perfectly average-sized penis, how is that even possible, I hear you ask? Well, firstly, shut up, it's small. Secondly, when Michel was around 9 years old, he allegedly, accidentally, swallowed a piece of glass. And after extensive x-rays, it was discovered that Michel won the evolutionary jackpot for his pica condition. His stomach lining was twice as thick as a normal human's. And to top all of that off, his digestive acids were so powerful that they could actually melt fucking metal. Michel could digest metal. And to make it even more fascinating, Michel couldn't handle normal food. Any form of meat or vegetables or carbs or just, the normal shit that everybody else eats, his body literally rejected it and it made him sick. He didn't crave nutrients, he craved the fucking periodic table. By the age of 16, Michel was fully aware of his condition. But rather than stop and seek help, he just started to lean into it and see how far he could push it. Plates, bolts, razor blades, whatever the fuck he could get his hands on, he started pushing it more and more. He would obviously break them down into small manageable pieces before carefully swallowing them and letting his stomach acid handle the rest. But as you can imagine, that's not exactly the kind of hobby that you would brag about to your family and friends. So Michel just kept quiet about it. But weird secrets like that don't stay hidden forever. Eventually, someone saw him. And the word spread about the little boy who was swallowing metal in his free time. And because humans are awful creatures, instead of being horrified, someone said to Michel, "Hey, you should charge people to watch that." So Michel began to perform in Grenoble. He would roll into these small-time, gritty, travelling fairs and he would set up a table, then pour himself a glass of mineral oil and water that he would use for lubrication. And then he would just start munching on plates, bottles and pieces of metal while the audience was questioning if God had abandoned humanity. Michel started to get noticed, and even better, he started to get paid. All while the local newspapers started to pick him up, and they named him Monsieur Mange-Tout, or Mr. Eat All, which doesn't quite have the same ring to it in English. Although it wasn't particularly fancy, it did the trick, and it made him stand out. He was the guy who ate fucking beer bottles in a world full of fire breathers and jugglers. People would laugh, scream, and gag, sometimes all at once. But they would always return for more. Michel figured out if he was going to be labelled as a freak, he might as well be a really good one. He was the talk of Grenoble. Kids would whisper about him in school like he was some kind of boogeyman, and drunks at bars would all swear that they seen him eat a fucking ashtray. And while most local legends just fade into obscurity, Michel was doubling down on it and started performing regularly at circuses, cabarets, and basically any place that would pay him to demolish the most random object that he could find. By the late 60s, Michel had started to perfect his craft. He had learned how to prepare the objects. He would snap glass into manageable bits, he would file the sharp edges off, and then oil them up with mineral oil so that they would slide down better, and so on. It was less performance and more like something between a safety precaution and a suicide attempt. Eventually, the French newspapers started covering him more and more with the headline, "The Man Who Eats Everything." And word started to spread beyond Grenoble's French Alps. And suddenly this weird little man from the industrial shit pit was suddenly touring all over France. So, in the early 70s, Michel was performing in cities like Marseille, Lyon, and eventually Paris. Big stages, bright lights, packed audience, the whole shebang. Imagine putting on a tuxedo, reserving a spot at a fancy place, ordering the champagne, and then all of a sudden the lights start to focus on the stage and you're just suddenly watching a man eating a fucking chandelier. It's not really something that I would personally pay money to see, but Paris fucking loved him. The very same city that worships pretentiously small food portions. And the only thing that they huff more than cigarettes is their own farts. Beyond the newspapers and performances, Michel also started to appear on TV. He would show up and casually swallow a handful of metal and give the camera a smile. And the best part is, his confidence is what sold it. He didn't have anything to be ashamed of. As if he was just a man clocking in for work for the day. And so, the more eyes he got on himself, the bigger the work that he got. The early nail and glass stunts were very impressive, sure, but he wanted to go even further. So, he started to focus on actual functional objects. So, let's go over all of the things that Michel managed to consume during his career. 45 door hinges, 18 bicycles, 15 shopping carts, 7 TV sets, 2 whole fucking beds, 1 pair of skis, 1 computer, 1 copy of the textbook Gravitation by Meisner, Thorne and Wheeler, 1 waterbed, about 500 metres of steel chain, 1 coffin, yes, with the handle still attached, and 1 Guinness World Records plaque that was awarded to him for the world's strangest diet. And his first thought was to eat the fucking thing immediately as soon as he got it. As well as a assortment of nails, bolts, plates, glasses, razors, and whatever the fuck else. The man had a hearty appetite. And if you find that impressive, or disgusting, or whatever emotion you're feeling upon hearing that, that is me excluding his magnum opus. Because, in 1978, he decided to go from local legend to international, by pulling off his greatest stunt. This is a Cessna 150. A 2-seat airplane that was popular in the 60s and 70s for flight training and personal use. Weighing around 500 kilograms and constructed primarily from aluminium alloy, as well as the odd steel and glass components like the engine and the windows, Michel saw this hunk of metal and he thought to himself, that looks fucking delicious. So Michel buys one. And then he starts to disassemble it into manageable pieces, which are about the size of a coin. He then coated them in mineral oil and just started absolutely fucking demolishing this plane. People showed up expecting some sort of trick or gimmick, but what they saw was a man slowly erasing a machine from existence. He worked at it for 2 whole years, every single day. He would consume about roughly a kilogram of plane every single day. That's a sentence I never thought I would say. And he actually fucking finished it by 1980. There was no plane left to speak of. No illusions, no tricks, and no leftovers. Michel had eaten an entire Cessna 150 piece by fucking piece. When journalists asked him, why did you do that? Michel's answer can basically be summed up to, because I can. And that was it really. No metaphor, no philosophy or corny preaching about the arts and the indomitable human spirit, just a simple, I did it because fuck you. That's why. The feat blew the fuck up. News outlets all over the world were writing about the man who ate a plane. He was invited on TV shows and interviews, as well as being poked at by doctors all across the world who wanted to figure out what the fuck was going on with this mutant and his digestive system. Throughout the 80s, Michel rode that feat sky high, and the Guinness World Records gave him the title of the greatest omnivore, later changing the title to the world's strangest diet. And this is the same Guinness World Records plaque that Michel fucking ate. But by that time, his career had already spanned a few decades, and doctors estimated that Michel had consumed a little over 9 tons of metal, glass, and other indigestible shit throughout his career. To give you a perspective, this is Jumbo the elephant, a very famous circus elephant that is widely believed to have inspired Disney's Dumbo. He was measured to be 3.5 meters tall and weighing around 8 tons. That's still 1 ton less than all of the metal and glass and other shit that Michel has consumed in his life. Do you think you could eat that amount of meat and bones, let alone metal? If you answered yes, you're a dirty little liar. Michel kept living his best life. He wasn't rich, but he earned enough to support himself and his family. And he really didn't do it for the money. He was going to eat a bunch of weird shit anyway because, well, mental illness. So he thought, if I'm going to do it anyway, I might as well get paid for it. But by the late 80s, things started to slow down a bit. I assume you can only eat so much hardware before your body starts to have a problem with it. The gigs and media attention became less frequent, and I can't really blame it on anything. I mean, he ate a fucking plane. Where the fuck do you go from there? How do you top that? Unless he was planning to swallow a fucking school bus, the show was pretty much over. Still, Michel kept to his performances, mostly for smaller audiences, French TV shows, local fairs, and things like that. He would show up, pop a random object in his mouth, smile, and say his goodbyes. He wasn't trying to chase more fame at this point. He was just maintaining it. But every story needs to come to an end. With the 90s rolling in, so did age. Michel was now in his mid-40s and he was no longer the all-consuming void that he used to be. He got older, slower, and probably tired of shitting glass and metal scrap out of his arsehole every single morning. He would settle back into Grenoble to live the rest of his days in peace. That's one thing that I didn't even think of. I love really spicy food, and the more of it you eat, the more of a tolerance you build up to it. I eat nongshim noodles with no water. I drain the noodles and then stick the flavour pack in, because I'm a psychopath. But, as I have found out to my detriment many a time, your mouth is what builds up the tolerance, not your arsehole. And let me tell you, that shit is not fun on the way out. Now imagine that with fucking glass. It's like one man, one jar in reverse. Although, at the end of the video he did kind of try and put it in reverse. But then, on April the 17th, 2006, in his hometown, Michel Lotito died at the age of 55. The shocking aspect to me is that the cause of death was listed as natural. No internal bleeding, no poisoning, it was just simply his time. And I don't mean to sound morbid, but this feels a little bit underwhelming. You would think that that kind of man would choke to death on a metal spring or something like that. But instead, he just passed away quietly. Michel left a very weird legacy. One that showed that the human body can actually do very strange things beyond any reason, and also his why the fuck not attitude fascinated fans and more so, scientists. because his body actually became a case study for the pica disorder, giving it a lot more attention in medical literature. Michel's story is about just owning the weird shit that you do. He could have went about his life in shame and hiding it, but instead he decided to make it his life. And if you really think about it, Michel might be one of the more human stories to be told on this channel. Every single person watching this video has something that makes them different. And Michel's story could teach you to celebrate it and be open about it. Unless you're a furry or you like feet. Keep that shit to yourself.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody just subscribe.